Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Eleanor Christie, Executive Editor for Coaching at the Open University Press, and I'm delighted to be in conversation with two of our most recent authors this afternoon, Hélène Seiler and Tünde Erdös. They'll be talking about their books, Using Client Feedback in Executive Coaching, Improving Reflective Practice, and Coaching Presence, Understanding the Power of the Nonverbal Relationship, as well as chatting about the process of writing the books and the tips they offer on how to deepen and improve your coaching practice across your career. So first, I'd like to introduce Hélène Seiler. Hélène is an international executive coaching practitioner, supervisor and educator. She draws on over 30 years of experience around the world in leadership coaching. Some of the areas that she's previously worked include financial services, consumer products, NGOs, the United Nations, and international education. In addition to coaching, Hélène has extensive experience designing and running internal mentors, training workshops, focusing on the coaching skills that are critical to success, and also continuing to improve your practice. Her book, Using Client Feedback in Executive Coaching, explores the wealth of materials that coaches already have at their fingertips to better understand their own work and current stumbling blocks that they might have. And so Hélène will be in conversation with Tünde Erdös today. Tünde is an executive coach, coaching scientist, author and lecturer at HEC Paris. She has worked as an external executive coach for over 15 years and is increasingly focusing on the significance of presence within leadership. Tünde is currently the co-lead of the global ICF coaching science community of practice, reflecting one of the aims of the book to encourage coaches and leaders to bring together professional wisdom and empirical evidence. As one of the endorsements highlighted, coaching presence will help coaches to reflect on and enhance their practice. So the book's a really valuable opportunity to allow coaches to continue their finesse their professional skills. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dive in with the first question straight away to Hélène. And what I wanted to know is what inspires you to decide to write a book after finishing your research?
Yeah, thanks for getting us started, Eleanor. I think for me, so I wrote my book, and first of all, I would say I wrote the thesis that preceded it because I really wanted to help the practitioner. So I had this question about, the coach receiving all sorts of feedback from different stakeholders. And I wondered, how could we bring the client in from a shared vocabulary with the coach, whereby the client would be able to give actionable feedback to their coach, and so sharing common knowledge about what are some effective behaviors. And so already my thesis was very much oriented to the practitioner, but it's hard to read. I mean, if you go on Radar and you try to read a thesis, it's really not a great experience. So I thought, how about trying to make this even more useful for practitioners? And so I started to talk about this with my supervisors, and they encouraged me. They said, maybe you should think of writing a book. And then I presented my research results at a conference in Oxford, the Oxford Brookes Research Conference. And there I met Laura. And Laura said, Hélène, have you thought of writing a book? And I'm like, oh. And so my supervisor was at the conference, and he said, yeah, Hélène, you should give it a try. So that really inspired me and also drove me to do some more research. So I did action research after my thesis, and I convened a few practitioners, and I said, okay, I would like you to try my feedback protocol and give me some insights how it could be refined. So I did this for a few months. And at the same time, I was, starting to write the first few chapters of the book. And I think also working with these coaches, who helped me during the action research phase, sort of encouraged me further, because they were giving me feedback about my feedback instrument in a way. And so that sort of produced a virtuous circle. And I would say the motivation just grew. Also, I have to say that the staff, everybody I worked with at McGraw-Hill, kept providing me feedback that was very constructive and encouraging. So I would say the more I wrote the book, the more I was encouraged in a way. So that's my story.
Yeah, very inspiring in that is in how, for me, Hélène, this element of serendipity comes through, right? You kind of like, you think about, and then it happens to you. You meet Laura, and then how all the threads come together, and everything conspires to happen in a certain way that's sort of meant to be, right? My story wasn't this straightforward. I wasn't meaning to publish at all. I think I was very busy getting my research completed. It was a huge project. It was really big thing. And that was the last thing on my mind. But I knew that, you know, like, it's generally speaking, we all want to be seen and heard. I guess this is a basic human need, to be vocal about something that we care about. And so that has always been sort of harbored in my heart, and it was there. And but I wasn't really thinking of doing it. I wasn't inspired. But then there was also somebody in my life, a dear companion, Samer Hassan, with whom at one point I was partnering up, and he said to me, Tünde, you're doing this knowledge thing, and you're writing this thesis, and you're using this very special lingo. There's this, and it's so hard, and kind of like, and when I'm speaking about what I'm doing, and we were both interested in presence, he said, you know, like, why don't you do something so to make it sound lighter? And then I thought, yeah, actually it's right. And then that was actually the kickoff point for me, where I understood how painful actually this process of even writing the thesis, and people keep saying that the thesis is the worst thing that you write in your life. All the other things that then you write, it will be better, but it's the worst thing that you create in your life. The first probably, and the worst thing that you create. And that was the point where I started understanding like how painful this process is of learning to write, because in the thesis process, I needed to learn how to put my thoughts to paper in a way that fitted academia. And then how I then needed to unlearn this process, writing for academia and scientific journals, because I'm also publishing in scientific journals, and unlearn this, and then relearn in a way to use lingo that fits their coaches as consumers of knowledge, and they can turn it into something that is more practical wisdom, or they can align it with their own practical wisdom or not. So this very personal, painful process of learning to write a thesis and unlearning, to write for an audience that consumes the knowledge and make it sound applicable and practical, reminded me a lot of our clients. Actually, when they come to coaching, they sort of do a similar thing. So they had a constructed way of conceiving life and their world, and then they come and engage with us coaches, and they get deconstructed in their realities, and they have to learn to reconstruct a new one. So actually this process of back and forth of many different experiences that I had, I think eventually inspired me, because it was similar as Helene's case. I went to Oxford Brookes and I was presenting my research there, and Laura was coming and said, like, don't you want to write? And I said, I'm not there yet, Laura, please, this is not gonna happen. This is no good. And then actually she kept inviting me into the process, so encouraging me, as Hélène was saying. I think we were both very lucky with Open University Press approaching us and being encouraging about our process, because I remember I wasn't there to write. So I didn't feel inspired at the beginning at all. But then, as Helen is, I totally confirm what you said. So it's such an encouraging environment and way of, hey, just pen your thoughts, okay? Come on. And eventually to make something fruitful and valuable for people to learn from or not learn from, or for them to see to what extent they can use it for themselves. So that's my story about this.
Yeah, I mean, did either of you have a favorite part of the book while you were writing, or did that change? Because it sounds like both of you had quite a developmental writing process. So,
That's a great question. So I'm going to say something that might sound very mundane, but when I first wrote my book proposal, I was asked, okay, how many pictures and figures are you going to put? And I'm thinking, wow, I had not really thought about this. And so I have to say that for me, choosing the pictures was a profound experience, because I tend to be a lot in my head. And so having this process of looking at pictures and thinking about how do I want to convey my message, I spent an inordinate amount of time just looking at various pictures, and this actually helped me reflect even more deeply about my topic. At the same time, I was speaking at conferences, and so I was experimenting with pictures, with different pictures, how you want to, especially on Zooms. I mean, we were just getting started with some of the pandemic issues, and so there were some of my latest webinars were on Zoom, but also when you present a PowerPoint live, I mean, you don't want to crowd it too much, so the picture becomes so important. So there were a lot of connections I was making between preparing for my presentations, preparing for my book. So for me, that was actually quite a transformative experience.
Interesting. I also love this question because I haven't thought about, do I have a favorite part in it or not? And now what comes to my mind is, in my book, I invited also coaches and some clients to be vocal about their experience, like what did they learn about presence in the research process. And to write a chapter to give them a space to express themselves, because doing research is not just creating knowledge. It is, like for me at least, I can speak on my behalf, it really changed my identity and who I have become to be. And when I was collecting feedback from the coaches, and we were also receiving the self-reports from the clients, we found that they were also experiencing something similar. So they were learning in the process of doing research. And I was inspired to give them voices, to say like, hey, can you share, like, to what extent or what exactly and how you could also benefit from participating in the research through learning, crafting an identity or not, or what happened for you in the process? Because I was doing process research, so they were engaged in an 8-month process. So what happens in 8 months? Life can happen. So and that was actually that's the most exciting bit, I think, for me, where coaches have a voice to share, like, what happened on top of the knowledge that was created on a more personal level in this, in terms of identity crafting, and also for the clients. So that's, I think, what I would say is the best bit for me.
Yeah, really interesting to see that both of you picked out sort of favorite bits that clearly surprised you while you were writing, so that you, in some ways, you were discovering the book while you're doing it. Definitely very like human elements. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you have any advice that you'd give to someone who wants to write a book, as you both did after finishing research?
I'm happy to pick this up first if you want. A piece of advice. I mean, there's loads of advice, but one thing that really moved me was the initial moments of being invited. Actually, the moment of being invited into the publishing process, because I was approached by 2 other publishers as well. And when I was at university, I was educated in how to make a difference or differentiate, be discerning around receiving a genuine publishing offer. So what is a genuine publishing offer and what is maybe a scam offer? And that was actually very, very helpful, because when I met Laura, and the way I was invited into the publishing process, this offer of, hey, don't you want to write something? It was totally different than the other publishers reaching out and saying, okay, submit an abstract, and really soliciting, but there was no caring, there was no personal relationship, there was no, I don't know, there was with Open University Press, I could tell through this relational way of approaching and being the human behind, so I could relate to the person, and I could see that they really want this. And I said, why do they want this actually? I don't even understand my own research yet, so what is this? So to be able to discern, to be discerning around, am I receiving a genuine publishing offer or not? So I think that's one thing that I would, it's not a piece of advice maybe, but just the advice is maybe be more discerning. You might want to get your stuff published. So we all want to be heard and seen. But don't jump the gun, be discerning, make sure that you are not giving your knowledge away, you are not jeopardizing your knowledge, and all the work that you have invested, the years of effort that you have invested. So be discerning in that. Number 2, and probably it links up to number 1, we are not beggars when we are publishing, we are choosers. So when you're publishing probably the first book, it was, for me, it was the second book, we have a choice that we can make. We are free to free ourselves from our fears and maybe this attachment to getting published, and to facilitate our sense of discernment. And because we're choosers, so we are not beggars. And sometimes you feel that, I can count myself fortunate that there's at least one publisher that would find it worthwhile publishing what I've got to say. But I would say, no, there is a big world out there. And how much do you value what you are creating and have been creating over the years? I mean, it takes huge effort to create the knowledge. So how are we actually respecting ourselves and choosing rather than seeing ourselves as beggars, which might happen because we might lack the self-confidence to do so, especially when we are up against the first publication.
And I definitely agree that it's important to make sure the publisher is right for you and right for the reader that you're thinking about, and that makes your application so much more focused as well. So it's a two-way street, as you said.
Yeah.
So for me, Eleanor, I want to rebound on something that Tünde said earlier about the fact that it's not the same writing the thesis and writing the book. So I think when you engage in that process, you basically have to rewrite it completely, just because your audience is different, right? Because basically your audience for the thesis, as my supervisor used to say, it's your 2 examiners, your audience. And now you have the practitioners. So there are a lot of assumptions that you cannot make, that they would know certain things that you knew. So you really have to put yourself in completely different shoes. And so that's what, for me, the action research bit was so critical, because when I worked with my co-researchers, I had to explain to them. They were like, what's this feedback? What are you talking about? So you sort of have to put yourself back in the shoes of the practitioner who is trying to learn from you. So I think that was a very good piece of experience that you shared, Tünde. It's a different piece of writing. The other thing is that it's not for everyone. So if your research as an application is applicable to practitioner, I think it's probably a better candidate for a book, because you want to enlarge your audience as much as possible. And the other piece of advice is that travel your idea, your book idea, consult broadly. It's super exciting to be approached and to be encouraged by others, but I think it's also good to sort of pitch your ideas to other people and make sure that it resonates for them. And a good way to do that is, after you write your research, you're always invited, even during you write your research, to speak at events. So say yes to as many as possible, as many webinars or as many conferences when they are back in person, because that's when people come to you at the end and they give you some feedback, and then you can think, okay, does it make sense for me to write a book or not?
Yeah, I mean, that prompts me to come in here again, if I may. What you've said, Hélène, is be kind of like curious about yourself. So what is it? Because you brought up this element of educational, what we've published is educational, actually. And we are targeting coaching training providers and educators. So we are not writing a novel. So when you're deciding to write or get yourself published, so figure out for yourself, so who am I in the first place? What kind of voice do I have? Because it doesn't matter if you have got an educational voice or you have got a novelist voice, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that it's kind of like reflecting who you are, it's authentic. And I think that having published for Open University Press, I think it really fits my purposes and it reflects who I am. So I can really stand up and I can defend it, or I know that it's me. It's one part of me, is an extended version of me, sort of, in putting in practical words. The knowledge is really translated into practicality. And it's important that if I had been somebody else, like if I were somebody who likes writing novels, and if I had committed to writing an educational bit, I think it wouldn't be what it should be in terms, it would not create the value that it can create, or hopefully it will create for people. So the most important element for me is to add on top of what Hélène was saying, is be true to who you are. Figure yourself out. Who are you? What sort of writer am I? And then maybe also that will complement what I was saying earlier around, then you can choose. Then you're no longer a beggar, because the point is not to get published. The point is to get an authentic voice out there. And I'm fully aware, for example, that the book that I have created, it's for educational purposes. And for me, it's perfectly okay, because I love teaching and I love educating and that's who I am, and it's good. So probably having written it in a different way, or having been invited to write it in a different way, like as if it were a novel, probably would not be, it wouldn't be me. And it could not sound the way it's meant to sound. So
yeah, no, it's so important to have your own voice coming through, and it makes the book feel cohesive and authentic, and I think it makes sure that the reader feels like you're actually speaking to them. So yeah. So I mean, we've talked a bit about the benefits that you had as you were writing, but what other benefits have you experienced after publication? Both of your books have been out for a couple of months now, so I'd be interested to hear sort of, I guess, post-publication experience as well.
Yeah, so for me, one thing very tangible that happened is that it opened the door for me to get some teaching positions. So I was in a different situation than Tünde when I did my doctorate, and after while I was writing my book, I did not have any teaching position, and that was really one of my goals. And so as various educators became aware that I was writing a book, and after the book was published, I started to have some really interesting conversations with universities, and I started to get my first adjunct positions. So for me, that was a critical element of my own career journey, to be able to use the book as a leverage, really, and to say, I am committed to teaching, and here's the proof. I'm working on, and then after that, I've published a book for educational purposes. So that was really a big benefit for me. Another benefit is that it gives you even more credibility if you're interested in the speaking circuit. So the fact that you've written a book is going to get you considered for really exciting opportunities to talk. I mean, just for me, I can give an example of my the latest conference I spoke with was the Columbia Coaching Conference in New York, and it ended up being online. But I don't think I would have been considered had I not written the book. It gave me additional credibility. So I would say probably the key benefit for me was to open doors. And of course, I'm sure Tünde will agree with me, the more you teach, the more you learn, the more you present your topic, the more you learn about it. So there, yes, I'm offering to people, my knowledge, but I'm also learning from just sharing that knowledge. So that's been a key benefit for me, writing the book, becoming an adjunct, and also speaking and continuing to speak at conferences.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Hélène. And I absolutely. So the teaching bit is also something that came for me. Funnily, I can't say post-publication, because I think the whole process of reaping the benefits, it started when I engaged with the research topic per se, because I really wanted to be out there and speak and speak and speak and create visibility for what I was inspired to look into and to investigate. So basically every other week I was at a conference around the globe. And my husband got really upset because, and he actually left for that reason. He left because he said, so you're so busy, and I think you're eaten up by this inspiration, and you no longer care about me. Who am I in your life? Who have I become in your life? So now we are renegotiating the relationship. So it's not all lost and and crap, but it has got all these benefits that we are reaping, that we are getting visibility, getting credibility. We are getting teaching opportunities. We are getting contracts. I really got contracts. Just the other day at the United Nations, they confirmed in Vienna, I was hired to be a coach educator and a supervisor for 40 coaches in Vienna. And it's on the basis of all the publications and all the track record of everything that has, so it's probably not just a book publication, but it's a whole line of actions being taken, or the steps that followed one after the other, that eventually added up to this. So there are benefits, but I'm also honest about this. You will pay a price. We will pay a price. I paid a price. The more you're engaged with this, it's kind of like we have got just 24 hours a day. And to get where we are and to get the visibility and the credibility, you will have to pay a price. But it doesn't matter, because we always pay a price for everything. The question is, how consciously are you making your choices? So which price are you ready to pay and which one not? So apart from teaching opportunities like teaching at HEC in Paris, it's now like I'm running 3 modules per year. I also, what is happening on top of the teaching opportunities, and now the latest contract with the United Nations, is also that I can stay in dialogue with academia. Like, I was invited to join a small group workshop in Berlin in December this year by the European Association of Work and Organizational Psychology. And they approached me, as like Helen was saying in her case too, because they have seen the work published, but both scientific and non-scientific. So, and the benefit is actually for me to have this equilibrium in my life, of being connected with both, like academia, the field of evidence-based and science, and also the practitioners, because we need both. And it's also something that speaks, it's who I am. I love equilibrium. And I see it as my responsibility to not just do either or, but do both and do even more. Because it's a responsibility how we advance our coaching as an ecosystem. So that's a rewarding moment of how to see that I can have both, like my 2 feet in both fields, you know, on one hand academia and on the other hand also the practitioner in the teaching field. Or being invited by the NHS to deliver for them on their leadership training program, or speak to British Transport Police, or now partnering up with a lady to produce a documentary. We will collect funds because we want to create a coaching training program in Kenya. With which we hope to create even more credibility. And this is all just I would not say this is directly related to the publication, but I think that there is no such thing as a linear process. So all the things that we do step by step and bit by bit, they eventually will make up as puzzle pieces the entire picture. And these are rewarding moments, because I would never have dreamt to be invited to make a documentary so that we can collect funds so that we can create a coaching training program in Kenya. Well, if you had asked me like 5 years ago, will you do that? I was like, you're nuts. Oh. So yeah. Also, I think there is a last bit, and I think this is one that I hold really dear, is this sense of connectedness with the coaching community. And the way, through everything that has happened so far, how the self-confidence, my self-confidence has been shaped, which is unshakable. And actually, this is something that sells very well. And we coaches, we also need to sell our practice. So we need to be able to market ourselves. And through the publication and the research and all else, and the teaching opportunities and the visibility and the credibility, I think what has really come out very nicely is, come on, it's kind of like the self-confidence is unshakable in that no matter what question will be asked, I can answer credibly. And I feel good about this. And that is good because clients need to feel safe with us coaches. They need coaches with whom they know, okay, so they know their business, and who are not afraid and who are very well rooted. And I think publications can root ourselves very nicely as on top of our practical wisdom that we gain over the years.
Oh, it's amazing to hear about all the breadth of opportunities that have opened up to you both just in the last couple of months or up to the year. So just to round it off, can you give a 30-second summary of the book, or kind of a key idea within the book, just to put you both on the spot, so we can head back to that starting point that began it all?
Okay, so I'll get us started here. I think the main idea of my book is that your client, he's the one who observes you the most in practice. If you think of it, if you're a coach, your client is the one who spends the most time with you, and the most useful stakeholder to give you feedback. And traditionally, we think about feedback for the coach as, okay, I'm going to get feedback from assessors, from the accrediting bodies. I'm going to get feedback from my supervisors, or if I go to school, from my teachers and mentors. And my book is about, yes, sure, this type of feedback is useful. Your self-feedback that you're giving to yourself is useful, but don't forget, the client is your most important stakeholder. So let's make the client work for you. And that's why I developed these feedback instruments. So there's a common vocabulary for the client and the coach to discuss about the coach effective behaviors during coaching. So that's the main idea of my book.
And that weaves in very nicely with my theme, because we found, like in the research, that so unlike we believed, presence is not about a coach. So how much presence is a relational phenomenon and beyond. So it's such a complex phenomenon, interactional phenomenon. It brings in not just the client, so the client actually shaping how we can show up with our presence, no matter what we believe that about our presence and our default settings, and no matter what we believe how we are, it's actually, as Hélène was saying, so we are having somebody facing us and working with us. That is such a big mirror in how we can be present, we cannot be present. That presence is a relational element, but beyond even just this relational quality, it englobing also the surrounding, what I like calling the environment, the social and organizational environment of the client, that is always also present, and how we can become, how we need to learn to become aware how it's actually present, and also to pay attention to cultural elements, because what came through very interestingly is that culture matters, philosophical perspectives that clients bring into into the coaching engagement matter, and to be sensitive. And we need to be rooted not just with our mind, and not just with our emotions, and not just somatically with our body, but also with all our energies. We need to be so skilled to pick up as much as possible, or else we are missing out on very, very important cues. So basically, coaching presence is not about the coach. It's a lot more complex in terms of phenomenon, and that's what the book is teaching, sensitizing to, and inviting you to be curious about how complex it is, and practice.
Well, thank you so much to you both. It's been a real pleasure. I feel like today we've had a lot of fascinating conversations. So thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Eleanor.
Thank you.
And to the University Press. Thank you.